Hi, everyone, and welcome. Excited to be here today. I'm Christy Kennedy, Director of Business Development and one of the core developers of the We Are Resilient approach. I am super excited to be doing this webinar with you about power struggles and building our relational resilience. Oh, we are resilient. Take a breath. Our session today will run about 30 minutes, and we'll have time for some Q&As. And at the end, you'll receive this recording. Feel free to share that with anyone that you feel would enjoy it. And at the end, we'll talk about how to get in touch with one another if you would like. A little bit about Dovetail Learning. We're a nonprofit, and we're dedicated to strengthening resilience in adults and children, and we believe that will lead to a world of kind, connected human beings. We primarily work with parents, caregivers, educators, and also pediatric providers, basically anyone who's offering support to those who serve children. And in addition to those people, we actually have an annual teen internship. You can learn about that on our website. I'll talk a little bit about what you'll find there a little later. Another piece, one of our biggest missions, is that all of our work that is downloadable is available as an open education resource, free and adaptable for all. We just ask that you use the appropriate attribution and that anything you adapt, you share back to us so that we can learn from it and we could share that back out into the world as well. Oh, a little bit of housekeeping. I'm the only one moderating this. So if you do ask any questions in the chat, I'll try to see that and pay attention, and we'll address all questions at the end. And if I miss something in the chat box because I'm over on this screen, then I apologize. I will make sure to try and check back and forth. So a little bit about me. I've been with Dovetail Learning for going on 6 years, and I absolutely love what we get to do. I also, fun fact, love Halloween, and I love my family. Want to talk about a ripe subject ready for power struggles is try agreeing on themed costumes year after year as a family. The Mario theme was the last year the kiddos would join in our fun, but we recently got a new puppy, and she's a lot more open to our group concept of dressing up together. And before we dive into our main topic today, I want to just visit this idea of resilience. And I'd like to share this quote about what we feel resilience really is. And that resilience is an ordinary superpower. It doesn't come from a rare and special qualities, but it's everyday magic of being a human being. This is a core concept behind our approach because we truly, truly believe that all of us really are resilient people. It's not something we can lose, not a box that we check. We're resilient all the time. Now, we have expanded the definition of resilience to 5 distinct types, and I'll quickly go over them and talk about what we'll be looking at today. The first type is reactive resilience, which we define as how we react to the world, and it derives from our need to feel safe. Personal resilience, how many people commonly define resilience, is that idea that there's ability to bounce back from difficulties. Relational resilience is where we'll be hovering today, so we'll talk more about that soon. Group resilience, it's essentially how well a group works together in those hard times, but also in those good times as well. And last, but certainly not least, is cultural resilience, which impacts how we view the world and ultimately how we interact with the world as well. So relational resilience, in our definition, is the ability to adapt and respond to challenges in a relationship. Strong relational resilience builds trust and safety by helping us remain connected and open-minded in difficult situations. As we dive into power struggles, keep in mind how relational resilience may impact our reactions. For example, if I find myself in a power struggle with my best friend, who I have literally the highest level of relational resilience you can have, how might that look different if I was in a similar power struggle with a colleague of mine who I have low relational resilience with? How we react and the level of relational resilience is deeply impacted when we find ourselves in power struggles. More importantly, as we discuss all of this, we'll be looking at research-based connecting skills that can really help us ultimately be who we want to be in the world and in our relationships. Power struggles. Simply put by Merriam Dictionary, it is a fight for control. Our family settings add an added layer of power dynamics when we are parents and caregivers, just as in the workplace, it might look differently between a boss and a employee. That power dynamic adds another layer to our power struggles. Personally, with 2 teens in my house, this is a common occurrence daily, sometimes hourly, that I'm finding myself navigating power struggles, which is exactly what they're supposed to be doing. They're finding their own voice and their own footing in this world. It's my job to be centered and to connect with them. And let's be honest, they happen everywhere. At work, a colleague might have a different priority than you and won't budge. When navigating parenting with our partners, or even simply planning Thanksgiving next week, there can definitely be power struggles within other family dynamics. So today we're going to work through the connecting skills, which, if we practice, can help us better navigate through the inevitable power struggles that we're going to experience in the world. So at Dovetail and at We Are Resilient, we have identified 5 connecting skills that help us improve our relationships and help us to navigate through those power struggles. I'm going to walk you through a personal reflective exercise to help demonstrate how to use these skills in a real life situation and how to actually practice them retroactively so it can be more natural to do so in real time. I will also invite you to take a moment. If you have a piece of paper, I didn't prep you for that, but even mentally think of a time in which you engaged in a power struggle. And as I demonstrate and work through these skills in this process, try and think if there's a possibility that you could do the same. Golfing is fun. I was laughing at myself as I was prepping this because my husband thought it was hilarious, and he remembers the day that I'm going to describe to you very well. My husband has loved playing golf since he was a young child. He had these hopes and dreams and visions that his family that he would one day have would love golf too, and we do not. I like sunny days, but not chasing a ball around, and neither of our kids enjoy it. In fact, the last family golf outing that we had was the setting for one of my worst parenting power struggles of all time. You see, my sons really don't like playing golf, and my youngest son in particular really doesn't like playing golf. Yet in this moment, I had decided we were going to do it anyways for Dad. Well, you can probably guess, but by the second of the 9 holes we planned on playing, my son was throwing the ball, kicking the ball, throwing his club, I believe once into a lake. That was fun. Basically everything you're not supposed to do. And it was my adamant decision that we were going to play and going to like it, which actually resulted in neither of us playing, neither of us liked it, and my husband had a pretty bad day. So before I dive into those connecting skills, I want to note that, golfing is an activity in my family. It may not be one in yours, but we all have those shared experiences where we kind of visualize how we think it should be the right way, and it just kind of goes awry. It can be anything, whether it's a card game going the wrong way or a frisbee at the beach. It's just one of those moments. This is an actual experience of my family's, though. So we're going to move through the connecting skills and discuss how I could have used those differently in the moment. And it's an actual exercise I do on a regular basis when I'm looking at reflecting in a situation I wish would have gone differently. So the first connecting skill is noticing others. This seems super simple. We notice all the time, but we have to choose to notice with intention. The morning of my family's golf outing, for instance, I noticed that my son was not in a good mood. He didn't like the cereal choices we had. He was super extra snippy. He didn't even want to watch some cartoons. He really was isolated and kind of moody. I noticed that, and I didn't think to ask why. Why might he be feeling that way? I just made the assumption that he was unhappy about my decision for the family to go play golf with Dad. Out of curiosity, in this moment, thinking about your own personal struggles or a power struggle in a moment, can you think of a time when you've noticed someone in your household or in your close circle was off and you jumped to a conclusion as to why? I know we've all done this. But when we notice others, we have to remove our own narrative. We need to be open and curious, which allows us to move into our second connecting skill, which is heartfelt listening. This skill is about being open and curious to hear what is true for the other person. For instance, had I paused that morning, got rid of my own narrative, and asked my son what was going on, as opposed to assuming I knew, I would have learned that he didn't sleep well because he had gotten into a fight with one of his friends, texting the night before. I assumed he was grumpy because of golf, but that was my story, not his, that I was reacting to. And when we reflect on that power struggle when you are engaging in, and you think about it, ask yourself, I noticed the other person, but was I truly listening with my heart? This should be done without judgment, I want to add. When we're going through this reflective process, just to acknowledge with full acceptance of myself, I'm reflecting to learn. We all have these experiences. We've all made judgments. We've all jumped to conclusions. So just to throw those judgments aside and really just ask yourself, in those moments, was I truly listening with my heart? After we've truly listened, we can move into the next skill, which is empathizing. If we jump to empathizing before we listen, again, we can come across as making assumptions or jumping to conclusions. When we make assumptions, like I did the morning with my son, what others are feeling and experiencing, we can decrease the connection as opposed to grow it. I believe it is true, most true, for those closest to us, like those we live with in our household or anyone we've had longtime friendships or partnerships with. We've had so many previous examples that we often skip the listening part and base our assumptions and conclusions on past experiences. I assumed, because of a previous golf outing, that I knew what was going on with my son that morning, and I was wrong. And by assuming that, I just added fuel to this power struggle that was coming at us like a train we couldn't stop. Had I known what was actually happening, I would have better been able to move into what our next connecting skill is, choosing kindness. After empathizing, the choosing kindness skill can better our relationship. If you skip listening and you skip empathizing, the kindness you choose may not actually be helpful in that situation. For instance, to make golf more fun that morning, I chose to let him pick out some candy or soda, a bag of chips, some fun junk food that we don't typically have in our home. But I wasn't listening. I didn't empathize. So I did not know he didn't sleep well. But as his mom, I do know that when he doesn't sleep well, he has an upset stomach. So he did not want any of what I thought was a super kind choice in the moment. All it did was add fuel to our impending power struggle. And I'm just curious for you to ponder with yourself. Have you ever thought was there a moment where you thought you were being really kind and it turned out it wasn't what the actual person was needing? It happens to us all. And it's important to note that most of these skills are happening in seconds. So when I'm going through this process in that reflective way, to remind ourselves, sometimes this is happening in nanoseconds when we interact with other people. And through practice and breaking each of the skills down, you can learn to identify like, oh, darn it, I didn't listen or I wasn't noticing. And you can be able to pinpoint exactly what you want to work on when it comes to that relationship to foster and create better connection. The final connecting skill is speaking authentically. This skill is so important and also very tricky if we've not used our other 4 skills. On that day with my son, by the time we were about to play together, my speaking authentically was purely to win. He would play golf and we would have fun. His speaking authentically was he would not play golf, period. Had I known from listening that he was sleepy and frustrated with his friend, I could have empathized. I could have kindly chose to just let him sit this one out. It wasn't that big a deal. And I could have communicated my deep understanding for what it's like when you're in a bad mood because of another relationship that you have, that you're looking for that connection with someone close to you. Ultimately, I didn't win, he didn't win, and the day was not pleasant for anyone, especially my husband, dad. True connection comes from honoring and being with one another, not being right, not winning. And this is really true with children as well. We often ask them to not have or share their real feelings and emotions, to always behave, not to have a bad day, but they're also human. And when we connect with them as full human beings and allow them the autonomy to be true and to be true, we strengthen our relational resilience with them. And ultimately, we deepen the connection and the relationship as well. I want to also name, though, when you're in a power dynamic, such as being a parent and caregiver to a child, or again, this can apply in other scenarios where you are ultimately in charge as, let's say, boss employee or teacher student, anytime you still have to steer the ship to get the right thing done, it can be difficult. So the tricky thing about parenting and power struggles is that sometimes we have to make the decision. For instance, wearing one's seatbelt is a requirement in the car, no matter how itchy it may feel. 100% true complaint for my oldest son between the age of 3 and 6, pictured here. Side note, he's 16 now. He's just middle there. This makes navigating a power struggle such as that a little more difficult. So in this example, I could still use my connecting skills. I can notice if the seatbelt is bothering him. I can ask and listen why. Empathize that, yes, the seatbelt material can be itchy. Choose to be kind by acknowledging that that is a true experience for him. And authentically explain that the itchy car seat or the seatbelt is actually still needs to be worn for the ultimate safety of being in the car together. I would add that eventually we sewed some soft material around that and came up with alternative means for the necessary seatbelt, which is another component of choosing kindness as we go deeper down through that. It's important to know that building strong relationships is not always about everyone getting what they want, but it is always about feeling seen, heard, and cared for. Many times with people, young and old, being connected is more important than getting their own way. With the connecting skills, power struggles can be more easily diffused. We'll never be able to fully avoid them. It's a part of being human, but we can choose to navigate them differently. So one of the goals of engaging with We Are Resilient is to build stronger relationships and in turn, reduce the impact of power struggles. When we have the I am right mentality, we reduce connection and as a result, lower relational resilience. And I just want to name, if you're ever interested in learning more about how you can better your relationships and learn to practice these connecting skills, I really encourage you to join one of our resilience circles, attend a future webinar, or download some of our free resources. So with that, if you'd like to learn more about Dovetail learning, power struggles, relational resilience, group resilience, protective patterns, reactive resilience, I encourage you to visit our website at dovetaillearning.org. There you can download free resources. You can join a circle, a training or webinar. You can purchase some of our materials and just learn in general more about our work that we do. And I'm excited that I got to share this with you. And I just invite any questions that people may have, and we'll go from there. Okay, I have a couple questions coming through. Okay, this is a great one. I love this question. How do I use this process in a power struggle with my partner or spouse? That is an excellent question. I personally have been in that situation before where I've made assumptions around my husband's mood, especially during COVID. We're currently still working full-time from home together. I jokingly say that when we got married, we did not sign up for all day, every day school, a year and a half of distance learning with 2 kids at home, the whole thing. So the other day I noticed he was off-centered and he seemed a little grumpy. And I just made the assumption it had to do with the specific work project he was working on. And I just jumped to speaking authentically about that project, a conversation we'd previously had. And he got frustrated because I made this assumption. And so I worked this, I realized, I noticed he was off and I jumped to speaking authentically. So what I did is I apologized and I went to re-go through those connecting skills with him. So I jumped to speaking authentically and I went to him. I said, I'm really sorry. I noticed you were off-centered. Can you please let me know what's going on? Heartfelt listening. And then I moved through the connecting skills and we realigned and we were able to better connect. And through this process, we were able to kind of work through that. Laura thinks, does this theory apply to any power struggle, not just between parents, children, teachers, and students? Absolutely, Laura. This can apply in any situation. This specific webinar was focused as parents and children, but it really does apply anywhere, because the process of going through the connecting skills is really about fostering better connections and better relationships. So depending on how strong the relational resilience is within that relationship will depend on how the reactivity of a power struggle occurs. So the skills themselves are for you to actually be able to diffuse and develop stronger relational resilience and better connection. The third question that just popped up was also, kind of in the same realm, Laura, which is, what if I have power struggles at work? I think that's a great question as well, because power struggles at work, it depends on who it's between. For instance, if there's a power dynamic, boss, employee, or supervisor with one of the people working under them, you have to assess the different power dynamics, but you can still work the connecting skills. If you're feeling unseen and heard, or you're the one who's not being able to really connect with someone, if you go through the connecting skills themselves, you can develop a stronger relational resilience, a better connected relationship, and that can help diffuse power struggles as they arrive or pop up, excuse me. Oh, fourth good question. What if I don't like the person that I have a power struggles with? This is a great question. What if you don't like the person that you have power struggles with? I think the best thing to do is to pause, center yourself in that moment, and then really look at those connecting skills. Can you use heartfelt listening? If you don't like someone, can you really center yourself, notice that that person's also off, notice that something's going on, and think about, can I actually use heartfelt listening in the most difficult of moments? Because if that's the first thing you have to work on, you cannot move on to empathizing, and you cannot move on to choosing kindness. So you really have to identify where in the process is there a missing step? Where am I not making the connection with someone else? Okay. And from there, you can then move forward with the power struggle. Sometimes I think you have to pause before you can move forward, but we're not always afforded the opportunity of pause. Okay, so this next question. Are power struggles worse if I don't have good relational resilience? This is another great question. I would say probably yes, if not yes. If we have low relational resilience with someone, how we react to their needs, their requests, their differences can definitely push us into more of a reactive state. The way I'd like to describe this the easiest is my best friend. We have the highest level of relational resilience, and she can say absolutely anything to me. We can be in the height of a power struggle, and I can just be super frustrated, and I can actually pause and see how much love and connection I have with her. And that allows me to actually move through into the actual connection. I don't have to go through all the steps so quickly. I don't have to break it down. But if I'm in a situation, for instance, with a colleague who maybe I have low relational resilience with, I might be more likely to stand my ground and go into that I am right mentality. And I have to consciously move myself into the desire and the want for connection and choose those skills. I'm reading the next one here. These are just great questions. That's just so much fun. Let me move part of my screen. So another great question is, in a power struggle, can either party start the process to repair, or is it up to the more powerful person? So I would personally argue that any person can actually start the process to repair. Again, we cannot change the other person, but we can desire to create a higher level of connection. I also want to pause and make sure, depending on the power struggle, so long as emotional and physical safety are being addressed, just take that off the table. And we're talking about fostering true connection, depending on the power dynamic. But if we choose, even as the person who's kind of in the lesser power in that power struggle, to acknowledge we're in a power struggle, move into a direct desire for connection, we can then go, okay, I'm noticing I'm in a power struggle. Okay, I'm noticing the person I'm with is in this power struggle and they are really charging forward. Okay, I'm going to shift my mindset. I'm going to be centered and I'm going to engage with them, inquire through heartfelt listening. So for instance, if I'm talking to my husband, I would say, hey, husband, I see what's going on. We're definitely coming at this from different directions. You have a bigger idea of where we should be headed right now. Can you let me know what's going on with you? I'm noticing that this is happening. And to see if you can get that inquiry going. And through the inquiry, actually connect deeper with the person that you're in this power struggle with. And that can then allow you to empathize. There might be missing information. There might be a reason the other person is going headstrong in this power struggle that you have no idea what's going on due to the fact that there hasn't been that inquiry. Now, if the person has no desire to connect, to open up about what's going on with them, there's a bit of a miss. You can initiate it, but you may not be able to get the desired outcome if you can't get the inquiry to engage the person to share with you what's really happening. We have a few more minutes on our schedule today in case anyone has any other questions. Okay, well, I will plan on sending this recording around. Please feel free to share it with anyone. I encourage you, we're going to be doing more of these webinars. They're little short bites of what we've been working on as opposed to the huger, longer commitments. So I encourage you to sign up for future webinars. I encourage you to sign up for any of our circles that we have going, and I encourage you to download our material. I will be in touch with each of you with some resources. So if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I hope you have a wonderful day.